Hello, I'm Callum.
And I'm Gracie.
And welcome to the Dead Sibling Society.
We're going to be speaking all about the lows and the highs
of the people we love dying.
Callum lost his older brother when he was just 12.
And Gracie lost her sister last year.
We don't think we speak about death, dying and grief anywhere near enough.
So we're going to start talking about it. There's going to be a lot of sadness probably, but hopefully some happy moments too.
Yeah. Should we get on with it?
Yeah, let's do it. So to start off this podcast, I think people need to get to know who we are.
Get to know us.
So I'm Callum, and we'll be speaking about my journey in a little bit. But this episode is all about you. It's always all about you, isn't it, Gracie?
I don't like that.
So go on. Who are you?
So my name's Gracie. I'm 22, and I lost my big sister Laura last May.
So all really quite recent for you.
Yeah, just over a year now.
Wow. How did that year anniversary feel?
Very mixed emotions. We lost Laura to glioblastoma, which is terminal brain cancer, which, for anyone who doesn't know, is a very, very awful and quite a long death. We were very lucky that when Laura was initially diagnosed when she was 18 and I was 16, we were given 12 months. And she lasted 4.5 years she fought for, and she was well for a lot of that. But it was only, I would say, really the last 6 weeks that she was very, very poorly, up until the point where she died on the 22nd of May last year. So I think it wasn't just the anniversary that was hard, it was the 6 weeks coming up to that as well. It was the looking at your memories that pop up on your phone and things that was kind of this time last year, or I remember this was probably the last time she went in a wheelchair, or this was the last time she went in the garden, or this is when she was upstairs and then she got brought back downstairs and had a bed downstairs. Like, it was almost like a haunting period of memories. It wasn't just that one day, which I'm sure you'll understand as well. But
absolutely. And if you don't mind, we'll speak about all of those awful moments a little bit later, but I think it's really good to hear from the start of your life, like little Gracie, little Laura. Just tell us a little bit about you guys growing up.
Oh, Laura was an absolute overachiever from being tiny. She had a 6-year, when she was 6, she had a 10-year life plan. And that's not an exaggeration.
I hate overachievers.
Oh, I hate overachievers. Absolutely. But I was always very much like, I'm just chilling, I'm just taking it nice and easy. And Laura was like, by this age I want to achieve this. I have a book with all my certificates in. I have this. She was like, to have as an older sister, not easy. She aced all her GCSEs, aced her A-levels. Before she even left school, she'd passed her driving test, her advanced driving, her bronze DV, silver, gold. Everything that she could do, she'd done. She'd run a marathon, everything.
How did she pass her driving test before she left school? Was she
left
wild...
college, because I went to 6th form, left school,
She was even breaking
18.
the laws.
Yeah, breaking the law and everything. Everything she could do, she did.
Did you have a good relationship then? Because I can only imagine being awfully jealous all the time.
For a long time, and then they got to a point where I was like, I can't keep up anyway, so I'll just watch her and just, it was competitive, and then I was like, I just can't compete anymore. So I think, being a teenager, we fought like cats and dogs. Like, she was my worst enemy, and then 10 minutes later, my absolute best friend. But I think sisters are like that. There was a lot that I think, we went through a lot together, and, she was always there for me when it mattered, but she'd also be the first person to wind me up and to prank me and pull tricks. She was just like a typical older sister. And I think the older we got, the closer we got. And then she went to university. She went to King's College in London, which was quite far away.
And already an overachiever. That's good.
Oh,
genius,
God, yeah.
Like,
I'm there failing my GCSEs and everything. And she's like, I'm going to a Russell Group university.
And it was at university that her life, and actually your lives, just turned around, wasn't it?
She was 6 weeks into her first term at uni. And she'd been having some headaches, nothing serious, just kind of migraines, that kind of thing. And typical overachiever, she went to join the US kind of Navy Corps, or, you know, they've got like a little typical Laura thing. And for that, she had to pass a medical. She'd just run a marathon. She was dead fit, so that wasn't an issue. Until she did the eye test. And they said, you've actually got a bit of swelling behind your eyes. We want you to get that checked out before we can pass you on the medical. So, again, she probably didn't worry too much about it. Told my mum, who did worry. And she went to Moorfields Eye Hospital, who said, yeah, there is a bit of swelling, but, you know, we're not massively concerned, that kind of thing. So just sort of mention it to your GP. And then a couple of days later, she was basically bedridden. She was really sick, really poorly. So I think for me, probably with the promise of a day off school, we weren't overly concerned, but we're going to go and check on her, make sure she's okay. And then as soon as we went down there, she was just, you could tell straight away there was something not right. So we took her to A&E. And a lot of people aren't this fortunate that they get this kind of care straight away. But she went straight for a CT scan. And within hours, the doctor came back and said she's got 8 brain tumours. And that was
within hours?
Within hours,
So
yeah.
in the morning?
In the morning, she woke up, you know,
and
was
then
ill but fine.
By the evening?
Yeah. Within,
she had 8 brain tumours.
So it's just me and my mum down there. So we then had to ring my dad and tell my dad this news while it was probably about 3-4 in the morning.
Do you remember how you feel? Because that moment must have been such a turning point in your life.
Yeah.
When someone becomes seriously ill, we often think about them naturally.
Yeah.
But, you know, as a sibling, how did you feel in that moment? I imagine all your attention was to her.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that she said, because the doctor came in to tell us this news, and she went, have you guys got chairs? And me and my mum jumped up thinking they needed the chairs for someone, you know, there were a lot of sick people about. So she went, do you want them? Do you want them? She went, no, I'm just making sure you sat down. She went, don't really know how to say this, but we can see about 8 brain tumours. And Laura instantly went, plot twist, proper like dry sense of humour, I know. But I think I remember thinking, oh, right. No, I know, it was so typical Laura that. But I think I remember kind of going, all right. I don't think it hit me at all. I think I remember sort of thinking, you know, if someone's like, I don't know, maybe I was very sheltered in that I thought, a tumour, you just take it out, it's fine. I didn't put together tumours, cancer. I didn't put that together. And I think because they'd given her sort of pain relief and she was all right at this point, she wasn't as sick as she'd been earlier, I think I thought, well, she's fine. You know, when you hear that, you'd think you're looking at someone who's really, really ill, or someone who you would look at and you go, oh, they're not well.
And you
it didn't hit me.
Yeah, and you telling me that story of plot twist, that
Yeah.
humour, that is something that kind of went throughout her treatment, isn't
Oh,
it? A
yeah.
lot of humour, perhaps occasionally, sometimes not even understand, like for yourself, not even wanting to understand how serious it was as well. So just tell me about that through her treatment. I know she went on to do amazing things.
Yeah,
but...
no, absolutely. So after that, so we were still in London at that point, she had to drop out of university. And I think that made it feel quite real. We took her back up north, back home, and they'd scheduled a brain surgery, a craniotomy, for 2 weeks after that. So we kind of were almost like giddy because nothing felt real. We didn't know very much, you know, if you're almost sheltered by innocence in not knowing kind of what could happen. We weren't in this community now of knowing how fatal they can be and how awful this disease is. So we were almost like kind of giddy. We bought her an armchair, we were watching lots of films, that kind of thing. And like I say, she was scheduled for this craniotomy at Salford Royal. And that morning, when we woke up, something wasn't right. My dad was like, oh, I think she's a bit nervous. And I was like, Laura doesn't get nervous. Brain surgery is like, we were more nervous than she was. So I was like, that's not right. And I went up and she was just staring at the ceiling. And I was like, Laura, come on, you need to get up. And I remember thinking, something's not right here. And I was saying it to my dad. And I think they didn't want to do anything because they didn't want her to miss her surgery. So I'm going, I think we need to ring an ambulance. There's something not right here. And my mum and dad are going, well, hang on. She's just, because she was there. She was blinking. She was awake. She was conscious. But she was just kind of looking up and sort of like, I don't know, like, obviously your emotions are heightened. We needed to get her to that surgery, and that was the priority. And my dad had said, don't call an ambulance. Let's just, we might be able to sort of, she'll be fine. And we weren't saying this in front of her, obviously. And I went, no. And I went downstairs. I was only 16. I called an ambulance, and I remember being quite hysterical on the phone going, she's got brain tumours and she should be in surgery today, and all this. And then I remember hearing my dad shout my mum, go, Nicola, from upstairs. And I ran up, and she was fitting. She was having a seizure, which was the scariest thing I'd ever seen. To see somebody you love, that was a lot.
And there was a lot of moments like that, weren't there, Gracie, where, your sister, who was the overachiever, the one you looked up to, was deteriorating at points.
Yeah.
And it must be quite hard thinking back at those moments occasionally.
Yeah, I think because, like I say, that day was very scary. We were very thankful that she did wake up and she did recover really well from that surgery. And then she became kind of my older sister again. But there were a few points where I felt like, oh, actually, I have to look after her here, which it's not the natural order. She was my big sister and far more mature than I've ever been. She was born old, Laura was. But I think there were certain points where I kind of looked at her and that was almost the scarier point, where I felt like I have to be more mature than you right now because you need me. The surgery was like that. I've got a great video that's at the time probably awful, but they sat us down after they'd done the biopsy for that surgery and said she's got glioblastoma. She's got about 12 months. And Laura, very dry sense of humour, just said to the doctor, your scrubs are inside out. And I think my mum and dad were very worried that she hadn't quite realised what.
Yeah.
But she had. I think she was just she didn't know what else to say. So they stayed and chatted to the doctor, and I was pushing her up and down the hallway on a wheelchair. And this video, she's got hold of my phone and she goes, oh God, Grace, you're going to get all my money, aren't you? And at the time I was probably like, Laura, don't say it. But it was such a typical Laura thing to say. And I look back on that now and I'm like, she wasn't, if that was me, I'd be in a puddle on the floor. I wouldn't know what to do. But she just kind of went, all right, okay. I mean, I'll try and outlive that, but if that's my lot, then...
And she did so much, didn't she?
She did.
And because the bucket list is probably something people
Yes.
hearing may have heard about at some point, but this bucket list is wild. So firstly, she hears the news that she's got 12 months to live, and then she's like, oh, well, it was your suggestion,
It was
wasn't
my
it?
suggestion.
Tell us about the bucket list.
Yeah, I think we were in the back of a car, and I think it was a joke, really, when I said it. I was like, well, if you've got 12 months to live, you may as well make a bucket list. Probably hoping for, let's go on a family holiday to the Caribbean, let's meet Taylor Swift. No, that's not. Laura was very odd. She wanted to... I'm trying to remember some off the original list. She wanted to go to the Heinz Beans factory.
Fantastic.
She wanted to go down a sewer.
Less fantastic.
Yeah.
So she's really seeing the full process from Heinz Beans to sewer,
Start to the end there.
Start to the end.
She wanted to go to a prison.
Okay.
She wanted to... We did some cool things, we met Michelle Obama, we met
Right,
a
no,
lot
sorry,
of...
you can't in
just casually.
one breath say, well, we want to go to the Heinz Beans Museum.
But that is what it
Maybe
was
we could
like.
do a podcast from there,
Yeah.
or in the prison, and then meet Michelle Obama.
Yeah.
She did have some good bits in there.
Oh, she had some good
Wasn't
bits.
there a good
No.
trip quite far away that you didn't get to go on?
Yeah, she went on safari to Africa, which is quite a normal one, I would say, across the equator. No, I didn't get invited to that. Thanks for the reminder.
Yeah.
But there were some that there were lots that I did get invited to. She, like I say, passed her advanced driving and a driving test. So she had a licence taken off her after her first seizure. And as a result was like, right, I'm going to drive everything I possibly can without a licence. So a lot of people were so kind in that they, volunteered, hey, I've got a digger, do you want to drive it? So she did tractors, diggers, she drove a tank, a helicopter, a Navy ship down the Mersey Ship Canal.
Right. So she wasn't safe enough to drive
No, but
a normal car, but
but
a
she could drive all
Navy
this,
ship.
a lorry, a monster truck. Like,
honestly, our armed forces are doing great.
I know. I went on that one, and the people were so lovely. It was a great experience, but it was freezing cold in the middle of like January for about 6 hours.
So you got sent on all the shit ones. Then,
yeah,
really,
basically, she loved it, but
all of these memories were taking place, and I guess at that point you probably did know that Laura wouldn't be here with you for the rest of your life. How did you feel going through all of those kind of last memories, perhaps?
I mean, I think there were points that kind of almost feel like, when I think about it, like hot points, like the surgery, the kind of times when she was really poorly, where you'd go, oh, I'm actually going to lose my sister. And then the next morning she'd wake up and she'd go, hey, do you want to play Mario Kart? And I'd be like, she's fine. She's going to stay here forever. So I don't think for me it ever actually sunk in, ever. I think there were points where, and it was like blind panic, where I was like, oh, I might actually lose her here. But for the most part, because she, other than having a treatment, she was very well. You know, the treatment made her poorly and stuff, but she managed to do so much, and you'd think, well, if she's dying, she shouldn't be able to do all these things. And you do get lulled into this, like, a false sense of security, really, of, no, I will have my sister. She can be that one person who beats this. And then, you know, she went back to uni having been told she never would, and that was 12 months on. So you're going, no, she's going to beat this. She's going to... And she carried on at uni, and then all through COVID, she was so well. And it just kind of carried on, where, like, those hot points where she might have a reoccurrence, she'd have surgery, she'd recover really well. So there'd be that, like, condensed period of time where you'd go, and then after that you'd kind of go, oh no, actually, maybe she will be fine. And very kind of mixed. I don't think it ever really sunk in.
What was the moment, though, where you did kind of realise this is it? Because you say those last 6 weeks. I know that was a really, really tough time for everyone.
Yeah.
Just can you speak us through a little bit about those last 6 weeks?
So, October 2022, she had a reoccurrence. The doctors did another craniotomy.
What do you mean by reoccurrence?
Sorry, yeah. So with glioblastoma, my mum and dad always explained it as like an octopus, in that once it's got its tentacles in you, you can never get rid of it. You can remove the tumour, it will grow back. But you can remove the tumour and be stable for a long period of time. So a reoccurrence is almost that tumour sort of popping back. And obviously having a tumour in your brain, everything's so compact, you know, any kind of growth pushes on things can affect your speech. There's so much that's so held together so tightly in your brain. So a reoccurrence is just kind of that tumour grows back. The doctors, in our experience, took the tumour away. Sometimes we had a year without a reoccurrence. Sometimes it was less than that. And in October, this reoccurrence, they operated in the hope that they'd remove as much as they can, it'd buy you more time. All it was really was buying more time. But with this one, it grew back within 2 weeks to the same size. So as a doctor, they then go, right, this is kind of it now. You can't keep, it's brain surgery, you can't keep putting someone through that. So after it grew back, they said, right, well, we can do radiotherapy again. But that's kind of it now. So my mum and dad kept looking for experimental treatments, because throughout the course of Laura's illness, they'd found experimental treatments in Germany and various different sort of drug protocols and things like that had worked. You know, we had 4.5 years given 12 months. So they were still looking, but the doctors had basically said, you know, you need to prepare for her to not be here at Christmas. And that, for me, I remember sobbing in this doctor's office, and everyone kind of, Laura knew, but everyone kept it from her, because, you know, my dad was very much of the mindset that if she's still ready to fight, we'll fight. You know, if she still wants to fight, she's not giving up, we'll keep going, we're not going to let her down. So no one wanted that sort of negativity to kind of land on her. But I remember being sat in that office and my dad being with me, and, you know, me and my mum are quite emotional. She cries all the time, she cries at adverts, and, you know, she's not afraid to show her emotions. But my dad, we always say, has a very tight northern man suit. And seeing my dad cry to me was like, oh, this is bad. That was the tell, I think, for me. And so we brought Christmas forward. My mum and dad kind of said to Laura, with the treatment she was about to start, might be because you won't be so well over Christmas, we'll bring it forward so you can enjoy it. But that to me was, I hated that, because I was like, so you're saying she's not going to make it to Christmas? Why are you doing this? Because it's putting it into her head that she's not going to make it. But we did bring it forward and we had an amazing time. And at this point, we've been so lucky that so many people have been following our journey for such a long time. We had, hundreds of Christmas cards sent. We had my whole family over and my little baby cousins. We had presents sent from all around the world. M&S provided us with an enormous Christmas lunch.
We're not getting paid by M&S.
No, we're not.
So if
but they were incredible.
You can send us a hamper for our next podcast. But all of these amazing moments
and that felt like
of being able to spend time with each other.
Absolutely.
It deteriorated further though,
yes,
didn't it?
It did. She wasn't well over that Christmas. Our birthdays are both around Christmas, and that was really hard because I think everyone knew it was probably going to be our last. I'm not going to cry. And then sort of January, February.
I feel fine.
No, I know.
Give you a hug.
It's fine. She was getting worse, and you could tell. But no one was giving up. My mum and dad were still looking for treatments. They were still, my dad was very much, we're not giving up. She will beat this. And I was quite happy to be carried along with that. I think my mum, she'd built a community at this point with so many people who we'd watched get diagnosed and unfortunately die, or we'd seen this happen to other people now. So my mum was very wise to this. She didn't want to give up, but she probably in the back of her, I don't want to put words in her mouth, but I think she kind of knew. But my dad was of this fierce mentality of, we're not giving up. And Laura followed that, and I think partly for his sake and for my sake, but I was quite happy to be carried along by that and go, okay. And I probably did know, but I went with what, was being said. Her speech was becoming more slurred. Her movements were not great. She went from being able to kind of, walk a good few miles and be absolutely fine to walking down the road hurt, and it took it out of her. But she carried on with the bucket list. We were so fortunate that people were going, do you want to do this? Do you want to, we met Chloe Kelly of the Lionesses, and she got a signed shirt from the England women's team, and so many things were still happening that she was positive about. And, she'd get up every morning and try and take the dog for a walk, and she hadn't given up and wasn't ready to give up. So we didn't. But as the months passed, she got sicker and sicker. She, certain things like getting upstairs was becoming a lot harder, and she sort of needed someone behind her to kind of hold her up a little bit. And I think when you're living in it, it's gradual and you don't notice it. But I was in the last year of my degree, and Laura had left me strict instructions that I had to get my degree. So I was still trying to juggle that. And I think that distance of maybe I'd go to uni for 2 days and then come home, and even in that space of time, I could look at my mum and dad and go, she's a lot worse. And they'd go, really, do you think? And I could tell. That sort of April, May, she... kind of feeding herself and that kind of thing was sort of starting to slip a bit. My mum and dad took her to Germany for 2 weeks in sort of a last-ditch attempt to do something. She had a Myers put in, which actually did help the tumour, but at that point it was too late. So that was hard, because that was 2 weeks without her while I was trying to finish my degree. And I don't really remember that much from that period of time, but I remember when she came back, it was quite obvious that this was it now. She ended up in hospital because she had an infection from this treatment. She was in hospital for about 10 days, and when she came out, she couldn't speak anymore. It felt like that hospital, she declined so quickly in hospital. She was in a lot of pain. She the words that it hurt to swallow, so the words that she could say were very yes, no, and that was kind of it. And then she slipped going upstairs with my dad once, and it, for him and for her, became a bit too dangerous for her bedroom to be upstairs. So they said, we're going to get a hospital bed in the living room downstairs. And that, for me, I was like, that's it then. That's it. She's dying. It was the safest thing to do for her and for him. And, you know, at that point, we were just trying to make her as comfortable as possible. But I really struggled with that because I felt like that was giving up. I was still trying to go to uni, and my course was very hands-on, and, you know, I didn't want to let her down by not getting my degree. So I was trying to do that. Oh.
Do you want a minute?
No, we're good.
I don't think you would have ever have let her down.
Oh, she'd have told me that.
You would have let her down.
She'd have gone, you've let me down by not getting a degree. But I feel a lot of guilt for that I wasn't there for all of that.
Why? Can I ask why you feel guilty?
Because I should have been there.
Why?
I don't know.
Because to me it sounds like you were there for her in so many ways, and you spent so much amazing quality time together, even if it was on a cold, rainy ship in like the middle of the Mersey or whatever.
Which I hated.
And she said to you, you better not fail your degree.
Yeah.
And there you were, living her request.
Yeah.
I think you were there for her.
I know. I know, and at the time that's what I needed to do, so I did it. Mm-hmm. But you know, my mum and dad always used to say that when I came home, which, you know, it makes it sound like I was gone for weeks on end. It was only a couple of days, but when I'd come home, she'd perk up. And she'd go from, like, I'd get calls saying, oh, you know, she's not been doing very well, we're trying to get food in her and everything. And I'd come, and there's a video that, it's hard to watch, but I'm really grateful for it, of me feeding her. And she can't speak, but she can laugh. And she was, like, overloading her spoon, trying to get food in her mouth, not quite. She was all there, but she obviously couldn't quite grasp that she couldn't eat that much and stuff. So I'm knocking the food off her spoon and making a joke out of it. And she's got this cackling laugh. And, you know, she did perk up when I was there. And, you know, maybe if I'd been there all the time, that wouldn't have been the case. But
well, she perked up because she loved you loads.
Yeah, probably. But, like, kind of sitting and watching films with her. And, you know, she loved Wallace and Gromit, so God, we watched so much Wallace and Gromit. And even just being there, I think it was really hard because I looked at her and I almost didn't want to look at her because she didn't look like my sister anymore. She was, but she didn't look like my sister anymore. And it was really hard to see someone you love like that. But by those... Come on, Gracie, pull yourself together. By those final weeks, the kindest thing was for her to die. She was in a lot of pain. She was having lots of seizures. I remember there was a day where she had just kind of countless seizures in one day. And every time, and there was nothing we can do because that was just what was happening. We were giving her pain relief and she had a syringe driver to try and stop them. But every time she'd fit, we'd all be kind of around her going, it's okay, Laura, it's okay. And her eyes would go like that and then they'd lock onto me. And I'll never forget that feeling of, I can't help you. I can't do anything to help you. I didn't realise this was going to be so emotional. So by the end, it was just the kindest thing for her. And on the 22nd of May, in the early hours, she died. And we all held on to her, and we were all there. And at that point, it was the most peaceful thing to happen to her. And we opened the window, and And we said goodbye. And I feel like she's still with me. I feel like, in a lot of ways, she died before that day. But seeing that, you'll know, nothing can prepare you for that. But having someone who knows what that's like, that changes things. Let me compose myself.
Just one second. We're putting ourselves through trauma,
oh my
aren't
God,
we, Gracie?
I know,
what
why
the
are we
hell
doing
we
this?
doing? And also, for those that listening and aren't watching, can't see, I'm nowhere near Gracie to give her a massive hug. And all I want to do is give you a big hug right now. And reliving these memories, especially when they are so raw and so recent.
Yeah.
And they'll always be raw, I imagine, but they're so recent, it's particularly tough. But
yeah,
you say you still feel like she's with you. Like I never had the fortune of meeting Laura, and I've only got to know you guys as a family.
I feel like you know her though. I
honestly,
forget you've not met her.
I've been on a tour of Laura today, looking at every form of memorial she's ever had.
The bench and everything.
I think I know about Laura because of you, and I think some of the things that you embody about her and the joy that she brought to this world is so evident. But evident because of you and because of your family, because you keep her memory alive in so many ways. And keeping a memory alive can sometimes feel difficult and daunting, can't it? But you guys, oh my gosh, have you done a bloody good job of doing that?
Because
I remember we were speaking first. One of the first things we spoke about to each other about when we were speaking about the pits of grief that we're in is that the funeral. Okay, so we'll speak about the funeral that my brother had was very kind of traditional and it was perfect actually, but you guys had like a party kind of in a so this is a couple of weeks after she died.
Yeah.
How did you celebrate her life?
So Laura was cremated. We're not religious or anything like that, and she left strict instructions that actually she wanted to be cremated and then put in a field, planted under a tree, and then have all of her family planted under trees around her as they die.
Okay, so she wants to bring everyone down with her.
Yeah, basically. She wanted a forest of death. But for her funeral, I mean, we knew sort of bits about what she wanted, but, you don't leave that strict of instructions because it's not really something you think about. So we tried to very much sort of think, what would Laura do? What would Laura want? So there's a farm near us that's like a kid's farm. We can go on the little tractors, and there's like goats you can feed, and like a cafe. Yeah. And we'd taken my little baby cousin there a couple of times, and we loved it there, and it was lovely. And we'd looked for ages for venues and kind of places that we just sort of wanted a marquee where we could talk and more of a celebration and more of a like, look at how incredible this human being was. Mm-hmm. And let's not be sad, let's cry if we want to cry, but let's celebrate how amazing this person was. So we ended up looking at this farm, and I don't know how it happened. I think my mum probably made some phone calls, and they said, yeah, we've got this lovely like outdoor pavilion type of thing. We can put a screen on. We've got picnic benches. You can have, definitely, we can do that. So it kind of it snowballed like everything the Nuttalls do. They seem to snowball very quickly. And eventually we had like live streaming happening because there were so many people that had followed her story from all around the world that weren't going to be able to come. So we live streamed it, and it was, I think we probably had about 200, 300 people there.
You had bands.
We had a brass band. My mum's choir was there. We encouraged people to bring kids because they had like a bouncy castle type of thing, and obviously you could feed the animals. You could, it's not that the kids had to sit there and.
This must be the first time that farm has ever been approached to have a funeral,
probably.
And probably the last.
Hopefully the last.
But all of these really actually joyous memories, that it kind of what you've done in the past year as well, because you are only a year into your grief. What we're speaking about was only a year ago. I imagine you've been through a lot of tough moments, and you've gone through a lot of those kind of first milestones. So the the first birthday, the first Christmas, the first holiday, those kind of things.
Yeah.
How have you dealt with or not dealt with those first moments, those anniversaries?
As a family, everything we've done, we've dealt with as a family. And I am very, very fortunate in that, you know, I have an incredible support system. You know, my family, my friends, everyone has been so supportive throughout it.
And I can back that. Your family are amazing, aren't
they are great, aren't they? But we've just done it because you can't not.
What? Yeah, but what do you mean by just done it? Because some people listening to this
That's bad
maybe
advice, isn't
many
it?
years into their kind of since someone close to them died, and they feel like they can't just do it, or they might be right in the early stages, and they're like, "Gosh, how am I gonna? What? Just done it? What? Do you, tell me more?" Because you have just done it, but you've kind of done the special things around certain things to try and make it more bearable, haven't you?
It is just putting one foot in front of the other, and you know, if you need to cry, go and cry. If you're angry, be angry. Every feeling, every emotion is completely valid. We, within our community, have managed to do kind of like a lot of little things that feel like Laura's still with us. We've set up a foundation, the Be More Laura Foundation, that very much keeps her at the forefront of everything that we do. You know, she was so passionate about preventing this from happening to other people. So we've carried on with that. We've, you know, donated over £85,000 to research charities and to projects that are hopefully going to, for various different cancers and causes that are hopefully going to, you know, keep her legacy going on. Silly things like we've got a little bench in the park near us that's a little touch point that we can go to, and you know, I can take flowers to, or I can just have a bitch and a moan to, that kind of thing. We have t-shirts for the foundation that have her words on that people all around the globe have got.
Should we test me?
Oh, test me, because I forget what they are.
You should know the words.
I wrote the logo.
So Laura had some sayings that she used to say.
It was for a year 6 leavers letter that she wrote to a local primary school, of kind of saying, exams aren't everything, here's what's more important.
Okay.
So we took those words. Go on.
Should we do first line? So the first one's be kind.
Yeah.
Then it's...
Be brave. No, I've got it.
Be silly.
Be honest.
There you go.
There we go.
Be kind, be brave, be silly, be honest. And that sums up her. And I think that really clearly sums up you as well.
Thank
and
you. That's what we try to do.
Speaking a lot about our experiences and our grief over these episodes. And I'm sure people will hear more about the moments that we have. But can I ask one final question? Yes. Why do you want to do this podcast?
I want to do this podcast for many reasons. I think it's nice to be able to keep talking about Laura. It gives me an excuse to keep her memory very much alive and preserve it in a way. And I think, you know, this isn't a community either of us ever wanted to be a part of, but there is very little of a conversation about sort of grief, and particularly sibling grief, on social media, on, you know, anything really. When I first lost Laura, there weren't really any podcasts or anything like that I could turn to that wasn't just sad but had humour in it, and that
we've been quite sad on this.
We have been quite sad. I
we?
promise they won't all be this sad.
Honestly, this is a bad example.
This is a bad example.
Being funny, or maybe not funny, but laughing.
But I think even if this helps one person not feel alone, even if one person has the motivation to get up and put one foot in front of another today, then it's worth it, isn't it? All this is for is to try and make people feel like they're not alone in their grief.
Well, Gracie, you certainly make me feel like I'm not alone. Just sharing what we have collectively experienced at different points in our life. And yeah, cool. We've got to work out how to make the next ones a little bit more humorous, haven't we?
They will be a bit more humorous, I promise. But thank you for letting me speak to her. Speak to her? God, I hope not.
To her? Where is she?
But speak about her.
It's all a lie. She's actually in this room.
She's here. No, but thank you for letting me speak about her. And, you know, I'm excited for this. I'm excited that we can talk about our siblings and that hopefully we will be able to help other people.
Thanks, Gracie, for sharing that. And I guess people can also share their stories.
Yeah.
Is that true? Are we doing that?
We're
doing that, aren't we?
We're doing that. No, we'd love that. We're on social media as the Dead Sibling Society. If anyone would like to tell us sort of their stories or ask us any questions that we'd be able to talk about on the pod.
On the pod.
On the pod.
Cool. And it's not just siblings, of course.
It's not just siblings.
Anyone
Grief
can speak
generally,
to us.
or
and we're going to be speaking to a lot of people that you may have heard of and perhaps haven't heard their story. Some of them have experienced sibling bereavements, others that haven't, that we can all learn from.
Yeah.
And our next episode will actually be available right now as well
it will.
on all the best podcast streaming platforms.
We're going to be talking to Callum and getting his story and giving you an excuse to talk about your brother.
Thanks, Gracie.
But thank you all so much for watching, and
we'll see you next time.
See you next time. You should have been listening, not watching. Oh, it's so cringe.